Black Belt challenged Black Janitor to spar for fun. What happened next left the room speechless. Downtown Chicago, 7:52 p.m. Rain on the glass. The fluorescent lights buzzed in the Martial Arts Academy as mops squeaked across the mat. No students were left, just sweat, echo, and the hum of a vending machine. "Hey, mop guy." Derek's voice cut through the silence. "Wanna show these kids what not to do?" Marcus looked up from the floor, still kneeling by the bucket. He wore gray janitor pants and a faded sweatshirt that clung to his arms. He didn't answer. "Come on," Derek smirked. "You clean the mats. Least you can do is use one. Ever thrown a punch? Or just garbage?" Laughter from the other side of the gym. 4 advanced students remained, packing their gear, but now watching. Derek Mitchell, 3rd-degree black belt, head instructor. 34. Loud. Always needed an audience. He strutted across the mat barefoot, ego first. Marcus said nothing. He dipped the mop again. His hand trembled just slightly as he wrung it out. "You afraid to get that fancy hoodie dirty?" Derek jeered. "Or just scared to touch something that hits back?" The tension in the room snapped taut. Marcus stood up slowly. He didn't raise his voice. "I'm just trying to finish my shift." His eyes didn't meet Derek's. Not yet. Near the door, a young woman froze mid-step. Her gym bag hung on her shoulder. Her eyes flicked from Derek to Marcus, confused, then uneasy. She wasn't the only one. Another student, lanky and quiet, dropped his hand wraps more aggressively than necessary. On Marcus's cart, a single white towel hung from a hook, frayed at the edge. A stitch down one side. It would become important later. Derek grinned like he'd already won. "Guess you're more of a watcher, huh?" He turned to the others. "This is why you train. So you don't end up like this." The room didn't laugh this time. They just watched. Downtown Chicago, 7:52 p.m. Rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the prestige Martial Academy, a high-end gym just blocks from the loop. Most students had cleared out after the advanced sparring session, their duffels slung over shoulders, their bodies bruised and sweaty. All except for 4. And the janitor. The lights overhead hummed faintly. A mop dragged across the mat with slow, practiced strokes, the kind only someone underpaid and overtired could perfect. At the center of the mat stood Derek Mitchell, 34, barefoot, shirtless, black belt tied tight like a badge. His voice boomed over the silence. "Hey, you!" He pointed with his chin, like it wasn't worth using his hand. "You clean all day. Why not show us how much you've learned from watching?" The man in the gray sweatshirt didn't flinch. He stayed crouched, twisting the mop into a bucket. Derek took a few steps closer. "You ever even been on a mat before?" He laughed, loud and theatrical. "Or are you just used to scrubbing up after real men train on it?" The tension in the gym shifted. One of the students, a thin blonde guy, glanced away. Another muttered, "Come on, man," under his breath. But Derek was already on a roll. "What's your name again? Marvin? Marcus?" He snapped his fingers. "Mop guy." The janitor straightened up slowly. "Marcus Wynn, 42, black, silent." "I'm just finishing up," he said calmly, wiping sweat from his brow. "Didn't mean to interrupt your class." His voice was smooth. Not afraid. Just restrained. "Interrupt?" Derek scoffed. "Man, this is the highlight of my week. A live demo. You versus me. Let's show these folks what happens when you skip training and just sweep up for a living." No one laughed this time. The air had changed. Slightly. Sharply. By the door, Alyssa, 22, paused with her bag in hand. She watched Marcus closely, something flickering in her eyes. On the cart beside him, a single white gym towel hung neatly, frayed at one edge. Faint initials embroidered in fading thread. TW. No one noticed it. Not yet. But later, it would become a symbol no one could forget. Derek clapped his hands together. Come on, man. Just a little fun. Unless you're scared. He took one mocking stance, bouncing on his heels. Marcus stared down at the towel, then quietly went back to mopping. The mop hit the bucket with a soft splash. But nobody looked away. The tension Marcus had tried to walk past was still thick in the air. Thick enough to cut. Come on, man, Derek pressed, pacing like a showman stalling for laughs. We're all waiting. You scared the mat might bite back. No one laughed. No one. Alyssa, still near the door, looked at Marcus and frowned. She'd only joined the gym 2 months ago. She didn't know much about him. Just that he was always there when class ended, always quiet, always watching. Now he was watching again, except not with fear, with stillness. Marcus leaned the mop against the wall. No words. He picked up the white towel from the cart and folded it once, neatly, almost mindfully. Then he set it back down. The blonde student, Jordan maybe, crossed his arms. You really gonna push this, coach? Derek shot him a glare. I'm teaching, Jordan. You think this mat is just for drills? It's about respect. He pointed at Marcus. And that guy? Doesn't even belong in this space unless it's to clean up after us. Another student, Samira, a soft-spoken red belt, shifted uncomfortably by the lockers. She opened her mouth, closed it again. Marcus turned slightly toward Derek. You really want to do this? It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a challenge. It was a question. A pause. A fork in the road. Derek heard it and misunderstood it completely. He chuckled, shaking his head. Bro, relax. I ain't asking for a title fight. Just a friendly demo. You do your little mop shuffle. I show the students what happens when you don't train. Everybody learns something. Marcus's fingers curled slightly. His right hand twitched, just once, then went still again. He was still calm, but not casual. Alyssa noticed it first. The way he stood now, knees slightly bent, feet shoulder-width. It wasn't a janitor's slouch. It was something else. Balanced, centered. Derek missed it completely. Instead, he rolled his shoulders, flexing slightly for effect. This'll take 2 minutes. Unless you need a waiver signed first, Marcus? Another smirk. Another jab. Behind him, Samira grabbed her phone, unsure whether she should film or stop what was about to happen. Jordan muttered under his breath. This ain't gonna go how he thinks it is. A drop of water slipped from the mop and hit the mat. The sound was small, but sharp. Marcus looked down at it, then finally looked up at Derek. Something behind his eyes had changed. Marcus stepped forward. Not fast, not slow, just steady. The way a man walks when he's done avoiding things. He moved to the center of the mat. His boots made no sound. His breathing didn't change. Derek grinned, bouncing lightly on his toes. Didn't think you had it in you, he said, loosening his shoulders theatrically. Let's give these folks a show. Marcus didn't answer. He bent slightly and untied the boots from his feet. One, then the other. He set them neatly near the mop bucket. Then he stepped onto the mat, barefoot. For the first time, Derek hesitated. Just for a second, Marcus looked at him. Finally, his eyes were dark, still unreadable. You said it was just a demo, Marcus said. His voice was quiet but firm. Then let's keep it clean. Derek scoffed, but his hands curled instinctively into fists. He couldn't shake the chill that had crept into his spine. Around the mat, the 4 students had stopped moving entirely. Jordan sat on a bench now, elbows on knees. Samira was still holding her phone, but now against her chest, forgotten. Alyssa stepped further inside. Should we stop this? She asked softly. No one answered her. Derek snapped back into character. Let's go, mop man. he barked, forcing bravado. He took his signature stance, wide, low, chest forward, the kind he used to intimidate new students. Marcus didn't take a stance. He just stood, one foot slightly ahead, arms relaxed at his sides. His shoulders didn't tense. His knees didn't lock. He looked like someone waiting for a train. And yet, something in his balance was unsettling. Derek lunged. A quick jab, low feint, follow-up step. Marcus didn't move. Not an inch. Derek pulled back, testing again with a light foot shuffle. Still nothing. "Y'all seeing this?" he called over his shoulder. "Guy doesn't even know where to put his hands." Jordan didn't laugh. Alyssa's hand hovered near her phone. Something was off. Marcus shifted, half a step, just enough to center himself. Then slowly, he reached for the white towel, the one on the cart. He held it for a beat, folded it once more, and set it gently on the edge of the mat. Derek frowned. "You seriously bringing a towel into this?" Marcus didn't reply. But the moment had changed. The students felt it. So did the walls. The towel meant something. Not just sweat. Not just cleanup. It was his. Personal. Folded with care. And now it was on the line. Derek moved again. Faster this time. A quick two-step and a shoulder roll. Marcus leaned barely. Just enough to let the jab float past him. And that's when Jordan sat up. Not because of the dodge, but because Marcus had reset his weight in a way only seasoned fighters did. Minimal, balanced, efficient. Jordan had seen it before. In film, in highlight reels, in legends. Alyssa stared. That wasn't janitor movement. That was a ghost of something buried deep. Samira whispered under her breath. "Who is he?" On the mat, Derek still hadn't landed a single touch. And Marcus hadn't even raised his hands. Derek blinked first. He hadn't landed a single clean hit. Not even close. And now, standing just a few feet from the janitor, he felt something he hadn't in years. Uncertainty. Marcus wasn't breathing heavy. He hadn't even raised his voice. But there was something in the way he stood, calm, centered, unshaken, that made the mat feel smaller. Derek circled again, this time slower. His feet shuffled across the mat, slightly more cautious. His voice cracked as he tried to retake control. "You good at dodging, huh?" He barked out a chuckle, but no one laughed. Alyssa held her breath. Jordan leaned forward, arms resting on his knees like he was watching a final round. Even Samira had her phone back up. Not to share, but to remember. Whatever this was, it wasn't just a mismatch anymore. It was a lesson unfolding. Derek feinted right and launched a quick combo. Jab, elbow, pivot. Marcus shifted just enough to avoid every strike. No wasted movement. No showmanship. Just control. Derek stumbled slightly after the last miss, catching himself with a grunt. He turned, now red in the face. He forced another smirk. "You been watching YouTube or something, old man?" Marcus didn't answer. He reached down and adjusted the folded towel by the mat's edge. A soft, deliberate movement. Derek's eyes followed it. Something about that towel he hadn't noticed before. The initials embroidered in the corner. Faded thread, TW. He didn't know who it was, but Marcus did. And suddenly, it felt like this wasn't just about a fight. It was about a promise, a memory, a name that still echoed. Derek lunged again, wild now. Not technical, not clean. His ego had been peeled down to nerves. Sweat beaded down his forehead. Marcus ducked, pivoted, and stepped in. He didn't punch. He didn't strike. He simply tapped Derek's shoulder. Just once. 2 fingers. Precise. Right at the joint. Derek flinched as if electrocuted. He stumbled backward, catching his heel on the mat edge. His balance gave out. He hit the floor with a dull thud. Silence fell like a dropped curtain. Even the vending machine stopped humming. Marcus stepped back, calmly. No expression. Derek lay flat, blinking at the ceiling. His breath came in fast gasps. Not from pain, but confusion, humiliation. He sat up slowly, eyes darting between Marcus and the watching students. They hadn't clapped. They hadn't cheered. But they had all seen it. The moment. Power had shifted. Not through force, but proof. Alyssa looked stunned. Jordan whispered, "That wasn't luck. That was training." Samira slowly lowered her phone. No need for filters. No captions needed. The truth was clear on every face in the room. Marcus looked down at Derek. His voice low, steady. "I told you, keep it clean." Derek looked away. And for the first time that night, maybe the first time in a long time, he had no words. Derek sat up slowly. His elbows rested on his knees, sweat dripping onto the mat. He looked like someone who had just woken from a nightmare and wasn't sure if he was still in it. He scanned the room. No one spoke. No one offered him a hand. No one applauded. Instead, they just looked at him and at Marcus. The man they thought was just a cleaner now stood in still silence, hands by his sides, head slightly lowered. Not proud, not angry, just still. Jordan broke the silence first. What just happened?" His voice cracked halfway through. Samira, voice steady, said, "He didn't touch him." "Not really, but he broke him." Derek pushed himself to his feet, jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to the towel again. The initials, the quiet reverence. He didn't understand, but he knew it mattered. He looked at Marcus. Search for something. An explanation, an opening, a way to take control back. "What was that?" he said, trying to laugh. "You used to fight or something?" Marcus didn't answer. He was done talking about himself. But someone else was ready to speak. Alyssa stepped forward slowly. She looked from Derek to Marcus, and then directly at the other students. "That wasn't luck," she said quietly. "That was skill, control, respect." She looked at Derek again. "And you turned this gym into a place where a man has to hide who he is just to keep his job." Derek opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jordan added, "If he's been cleaning our mats this whole time, and we didn't even ask his name, that's on us too." Marcus finally looked up. "Names don't matter," he said softly. "Character does." He walked to the edge of the mat and picked up the towel, folded it again, held it in both hands, like it was glass. "I've spent a long time trying not to be noticed," he said quietly, more to himself than the room. "But silence lets things like this keep happening." His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. It cut through. The gym owner had walked in quietly during the last exchange. No one saw him arrive. But now he spoke. "Mr. Wynn," he said, addressing Marcus formally. "I didn't know about your background, but I do know this gym hasn't lived up to its values lately." He turned toward Derek. "I want to speak with you in my office, after Mr. Wynn finishes whatever he wants to say." Derek's face paled. His mouth opened, then closed. He had no defense. Marcus nodded politely to the owner, then turned to the students. "You train your body so you can control it," he said. "But strength without character, that's just danger dressed in confidence." Alyssa whispered, "That's the real lesson, isn't it?" Marcus looked at her and smiled. The only one worth teaching. Derek stood frozen on the edge of the mat, sweat, silence, and shame clinging to him like a second uniform. 3 months later. The rain was gone. The windows at Prestige Martial Academy were spotless, sunlight pouring in like something had been lifted. Something had. The mop bucket was still there. But no one looked at it the same way. Marcus Wynn no longer cleaned the mats. He taught on them now. Twice a week, the gym filled with a different kind of energy. Silent, focused, balanced. Not flashy, not fast, but real. They called it Foundations. It wasn't listed on the schedule board by belt level. There were no colored stripes or sparring drills. Just one word written on the whiteboard: control. The room was always full. Even members from other gyms had started showing up. Ever since the video, the clip Samira uploaded had gone viral. Not for the fight, but for what came after. That towel, the movement, the stillness, and Marcus's line, recorded just barely over the hum of the room. Strength without character is just danger dressed in confidence. It hit like a philosophy class in the middle of a sparring gym. Podcasts picked it up. A small sports documentary channel did a short feature titled, "The Janitor Who Taught Us What a Dojo Really Is." Marcus didn't do interviews, didn't chase followers, but people noticed anyway. The gym's owner invited him to stay on, not as a janitor, but as a mentor. He refused the title master. He preferred Coach Win, and every now and then, after class, he'd reach into his bag and unfold that same white towel. Initials still barely visible. Tidoi. He'd place it gently on the corner of the mat. Never explained it. No one ever asked. But those who trained under him knew. It meant something was about to be honored. Alyssa was now a regular. Not just a student, but an assistant in the Foundations class. She'd convinced the gym to start a scholarship program for underrepresented youth to train free of charge. "We can't just fix the surface," she told the gym owner. "Character has to start at the root." They called it the TW Initiative. No one needed to know what it stood for, just that it started after that night. As for Derek, he was still teaching, at a smaller gym, less flashy, less crowded. He no longer used the spotlight voice. He didn't bark instructions. And sometimes, after class, he sat alone in the corner, watching videos of old fights on his phone, replaying, rethinking, relearning. A few of his students had followed him there, but most had stayed behind. Not for the space, but for the shift. Prestige had changed, not just in who stood at the center of the mat, but in why. It was a Monday night. The lights in Iron Strike Fitness buzzed with a low fluorescent flicker. Half the bags were taped. The mirrors hadn't been cleaned in weeks. At the far end of the mat, Derek Mitchell sat alone. No students tonight. Just the hum of the vending machine and the thud of his own heartbeat in his ears. He stared at the floor. No class outline on the board. Just the leftover scuff marks from last week's drills. Drills that no one had stayed to finish. In the corner sat a folded black belt. Not tied, not worn, just placed there. Beside it, a gym towel clean and used. No initials stitched in this one. Just blank cotton. Plain. Forgettable. Derek picked it up, turning it in his hands. He hadn't taught the confident stance in over a month. He didn't raise his voice in class anymore. Didn't lecture about earning space. Not after what happened. He scrolled through his phone, thumb hovering over a saved video. The thumbnail showed a still frame. Marcus standing barefoot at the center of the mat, towel folded beside him. Derek didn't press play. He didn't need to. The scene lived in his mind now. More real than most of his wins. The calm, the silence, the way the students had looked at Marcus. Not with awe, but with respect. The kind Derek never truly earned. He whispered to no one, "I didn't see him. I never even looked." The towel slipped from his fingers and fell to the floor. No applause, no speech, just a quiet space where arrogance used to live. Now emptied, and waiting. Some strength is loud. Other strength is quiet. The kind that doesn't ask to be seen, because it doesn't need to be. Marcus never posted a photo, never listed titles, never spoke of victories. But in that one moment, barefoot on a mat he'd once scrubbed with a mop, He taught a room full of people what decades of belts and barked instructions never could. That real power doesn't humiliate. It humbles. That dignity can live in silence. And justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it just folds a towel and steps forward anyway. The gym still remembers. Not because someone won, but because someone chose not to destroy when they had every reason to. Final shot. Marcus folding the same frayed towel, initials still faint. TW. He hands it to a new student. Young, nervous, overlooked. The student holds it like it means something. Because now, it does. True greatness isn't loud. It doesn't mock. It listens. It lifts. It makes space where no space was offered. Would you have seen Marcus before the mat? Or would you have walked right past him too? Speech balloons share this story. Because quiet strength changes everything.